Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of We Watch Shudder. My name is JD. Who's here with me?
It's Michelle, hoping our microphones work today.
Yeah, I definitely want to apologize about the audio disaster we had on the last episode. We're constantly trying to make sure things are decent, but every now and then one gets away from us, and as you might guess, re-recording 90 minutes of Michelle in review is a daunting task. So, also, we already had all the good moments, right? Yeah, so...
Yeah, I know. It does get better after 6 minutes, but even I had to sit through it and be like, oh.
Yeah, and then I put a disclaimer on it where my disclaimer was basically like, hey, there's some audio trouble here, but this is a free podcast, so if you don't like it, eat it. And I felt like a real jerk about that, but I was trying to be funny and kitschy, and
it was funny. You're okay. I forgot the name of the person on Twitter, but don't worry, JD is just very hard on himself.
You said hard on. Speaking of hard ons, what are we? First I know. Yeah, let's just move on. Hey, if this is their first time tuning in, awesome. I'm glad to have you. I can't speak for her, but she's right there. Michelle, are you glad to have them?
Depends. Are they cool people?
Oh, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. Yeah. Well, we're gonna find out by the time this episode is over, one way or the other. Anyway. So yeah, if this is your first time, it's called We Watch Shudder because that's the focus of our show. Shudder puts out a lot of awesome.
Creative.
I know, right? We're so clever. They put out a lot of original and exclusive stuff. When they don't do that, we talk about other stuff. Today we're talking about a movie that did just drop on Shudder today. It's not an original / exclusive, but it is a movie that I've been sort of casually looking forward to for a while. I first heard about it last summer, and then frankly it kind of disappeared from my awareness for a while, and then it popped back up when they announced it was going to be coming here, and I'm pretty excited about it. Michelle, what are we talking about?
Divinity
from technically 2023 is when it had its premiere. Written and directed by Eddie Alcazar, his feature film debut as both a writer and director. Michelle, I talked a little bit about, how much did you know about Divinity going into this? How long had you been aware of it? What did you know?
I have a gigantic list of movies that I have to see because I mark down everything that's in development as soon as I hear about it. This was on that massive list. I don't recall where I heard about it or why I wanted to watch it. It was on the list, the masterful list that is 1,000 movies long.
It's so long.
Because there are 500 things, and 500 things are in development, and some of them are just announcements, so they don't even have dates. They haven't started filming. So anyway, enough about the list. So I did not know anything about this. I do know now that Eddie Alcazar only does black and white films, according to IMDb. All of this history, except for Kuso, which
he was just a producer on that.
Yeah, but it's the only thing in color on all of his credits. And Kuso, if you listen to it, for the record, I kind of liked Kuso, but I will never fucking watch the first 10 minutes again, ever again in my life. I was dry heaving and didn't think I would get through it.
I would like to point out, no, that's a spoiler. Never mind. We'll talk about it when we get to the spoilers section. So yeah, Divinity. I had first heard about this from a friend of the podcast, Kevin, who you can hear way back as our first guest on our episode for a movie called The Seed. Last summer, we were talking about Suitable Flesh, which we were both very excited about and was on its way to being released. And in the course of that discussion, he also sent me a link to the teaser, trailer, whatever, for Divinity. And of course, just like visually, I was immediately like, oh, what is this all about? And so I became very excited, and then, like I said, it just kind of drifted out of my awareness. But when I saw that it was on the release list, I just got in touch with Michelle and I was like, we don't have a choice. This is the one we're doing. I insist. And
He did insist.
yeah, I don't.
I think you do that thing that you love to do where you just put out the episode schedule before I even have time to respond. So yeah, I did not have
Michelle,
an opinion.
I would like to point out that I had to ask you like 5 times about whether or not we could do the cuckoo thing on the
You asked me twice, and I
Are you sure?
responded the second time. Yes.
Are you sure? Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, one of us does not delete our Facebook Messenger messages every day.
Fine, that's fine. You
There's
make a
history.
solid point. It doesn't matter, guys. We're here to talk about Divinity. Michelle, I forgot. Do we have a Descrippy script that's a good Descrippy script?
Yeah, I think the IMDb one is fine because even though it tells you what's happening, nothing in the movie will tell you what's happening. So it's probably helpful.
Oh, you don't think so? Oh, okay. Well, All right.
Do you want me to read the Descrippy script?
Please do.
Okay, so IMDb centers on 2 mysterious brothers who abduct a mogul during his quest for immortality. That's a fragmented sentence. That's not a full sentence. Step it up. Meanwhile, a seductive woman helps them launch a journey of self-discovery. Divinity, 2023, 1 hour, 28 minutes. JD,
Yeah.
you like to hit us with these spoiler-free thoughts?
Yeah. So I have to do this in 2 parts. As a production, as a visual experience, as an artistic and aesthetic experience, this movie is really well done. It's very unique. It definitely has its own aesthetic, and it does a lot of things that I found really pleasing in that way. As a production, I like everything about this movie. I don't know anything about Eddie Alcazar. I don't know him as a person. I don't know his personal politics or philosophies. All I have is my reading of the plot of this film. And frankly, I find it very, very troubling, and I find it very troubling that more people aren't talking about it. Like, to the extent that I've seen it mentioned in reviews and just blown past like it was an afterthought that was not worth talking about. And I don't know, maybe I'm overblowing things. We'll find out because I'm going to get into it. But And again, I want to be clear. Maybe my reading of it is just completely wrong. I can't say. I'm going to go out of my way to not just throw accusations at people when literally all I have is my interpretation of this movie. But it really bothered me to the extent that I don't even really feel fair rating this, except to say as a production it's a 5, as a story it's a 1.
You want me to put it as a 1? We do base it on our personal enjoyment.
It has. If that's what our standard is, it has to be.
Yeah,
it has to be.
So a 1. A 1 for JD.
Yeah, maybe 1 with an asterisk. I don't know, but I just I was real troubled by what my interpretation of this movie is.
Okay, I have some ideas of what I think was going on, but I do not know what you think is disturbing, and I'm looking forward to talking about that in spoiler territory.
Yes.
Before we do that,
tell me your spoiler-free thoughts, Michelle.
Yeah, absolutely. Production value, very, very high. I wouldn't give it a 5 just because I think although it does a very good job of being authentic to older sci-fi and classic sci-fi and recreating the scenery and the audio and the music and all of that, I did find the grainy, low budget filter to be too much. It kept bringing me out of it because it was too dark and it didn't even feel authentic for that point. Sometimes it did, but sometimes it really hid what was happening. So I found that to be kind of a not great thing about it. But I'd give it like a 4.5 outside of that. That was the one thing where I'm like, this seems so authentic, but it kept being so dark and grainy that I would go, oh yeah, I'm watching a movie, and just be completely brought out of
Sure.
it.
Yeah, I
So
can see that.
yeah, you can see the grainy filter like I can. Good. Story wise, I am fascinated. I want to watch it twice. Especially after hearing what you have to say, because oh boy, I found a couple things. I wouldn't say upsetting. I found like a couple things where I was like, is this the message that you're trying to go with? But we shall see.
I'm willing.
I don't know.
I'm willing to bet you're thinking the same things I'm thinking, but I'm absolutely certain it's the message. Like,
Okay.
I can't say that. I can't say I'm absolutely certain, but if it's not, man, they sure tried really hard for it to make it seem like it was.
Yeah, but I also don't understand nuance. You told me that I should listen or watch Love Lies Bleeding for the metaphor, and I went, I took it literally. So like I'm not great at messages.
We still need to talk
I just
about
go
that
like,
behind
wow.
the scenes. Yeah.
We absolutely do. So okay, yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. I did think as cool as it was in the beginning, it did get a little long for me. It's not a long movie. It's only an hour and 28 minutes. It's good. It's right at that 90-minute mark, but it just felt like a lot of the novelty wore off the longer that it continued. But still fairly interesting. I enjoyed it. I will go with a 3.5 for me. I do want to watch it a second time, but I don't know if I'll ever need to watch it a third time.
Okay.
Unless you tell me something very interesting, and then maybe I'll watch it a third and fourth time because I gotta know.
Sure. All right, guys, that's our spoiler-free thoughts. One with an asterisk for me. The asterisk being as a production, I think it's perfect. It's anyway. If you don't want anything to be spoiled, you're gonna go watch the movie now and then come back. Well, did you come back from the break, everybody? Did you go watch the movie? Michelle and I, well, you guys went to watch the film, had a complete disaster with our internet. Again, I don't know what's going on. I'm becoming really
Everybody
frustrated
hates
with
us.
it. I'm pretty sure it's a
Everybody hates
Facebook Messenger thing. Hey, Facebook Messenger, you used to be fine. Now you suck. I will say that. Anyway, we have finally just established a telephone call connection. It's not ideal because I like to be able to watch Michelle's face completely collapse when I say things. But here we are. If we sound frustrated and exhausted all of a sudden, I apologize. So for
you
like
guys, it was a couple seconds. For us, it was like 10 minutes of troubleshooting and frustration and false starts.
It was
to you, it's nothing. To us, it's everything.
Yeah, it was the worst. So anyway, we've been trying to get Michelle an opportunity to summarize this movie for the folks who maybe didn't want to go watch it. Michelle, do you think you're going to be able to do that after all of the stress of your evening?
Yeah, let's give it a go, shall we? I love a good attempt at things. Don't always succeed, but I can definitely attempt it.
All right.
Should I go ahead?
Do it.
Okay. So, how the fuck? So it's black and white and a drug trip for like 90% of it. Just keep that in mind. Black and white, lots of crazy images. Sci-fi, like 1940s, 1950s, but Jetson style. So like it's old, but it's also modern. So like think you got it in mind, like a Twilight Zone episode, you got it. Okay, lock that in. That's visually what we're looking at. And now we've got this world where this guy invented the cure to aging, and so you can be immortal by taking Divinity. The name of the movie is the name of the drug. So you can take Divinity, and all the beautiful people in the world are taking Divinity, and now everything's like sexed up and great, and everybody loves pleasure, and that's all this thing is about, is like pleasure yourself. It's great, but oh no, nobody's reproducing anymore, which, as somebody who's not having children, okay, I'll take the Divinity, fuck it. So, you know, like nobody's they're banging a lot, but nothing's coming out of it. And you know what? God, I want to live in that world. But apparently that's a bad thing, is what this film ultimately tries to say. There's two alien slash celestial beings slash god slash time travel. I don't know what the fuck they are. There's two guys. One of them, you might know him as Moises Arias, the guy from Fallout, but the Fallout show, I mean, not like Fallout Boy. But he's from the Fallout show. I know him as the guy from Hannah Montana. And so that's a really weird thing to know him as and then see him in this movie. But he will forever be Hannah Montana. I'm sorry. I enjoyed Hannah Montana, and that's who Moises Arias is for the rest of both of our lives. So he and his alien god brother, they decide to take the guy who created Divinity using his dad's recipe he built on a family secret. And so he's the one who really nailed it, got the recipe perfected. Seasoning's so good. He knows what he's doing. And then they just pump him full of his own drug. And then he turns into like Dave Bautista plus like a penis. He's a big, bulky, veiny man and very scary. And so he's like, steroids. But it's Divinity. And then eventually both the brothers die. But they don't die. They poof and become stars. That's after a whole stop motion fight. This thing, it uses stop motion too, which again, really cool, authentic sci-fi experience. And then the big reveal that I did not feel was all that shocking because I'm a bad person was that Divinity is made from embryos. And I was like, okay, fuck them kids. Who cares? Give me eternal life so I can read all the books that are on my list and watch all. Fuck them kids. And so then there's also a cult of beautiful, skinny women, and they're pure beings who are going to repopulate the world because they have not taken Divinity and therefore they can reproduce. And then at the very end, one of them births a plant. The end.
Yeah, I'd say that that pretty much nails the plot,
Cool.
kind of, on the head. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you liked about this movie? I don't even know. How do we want to do this, Michelle?
Well, we both talked about how we like the production value, and I think that's its number one selling point. I think the reveal at the end, I went, oh, okay, because then it does have a message of like, you guys gotta fucking have kids. And I was like, I don't know. But also, this movie is fairly absurd to the point where I'm like, is that actually what they're trying to say? Or is that just another absurd meaning of the film? Like this beautiful cult of women are going to save us all. So, I had the story was kind of like, I don't quite get it. If you're trying to say something, I don't agree with what you're saying, but I also don't even know if I should take you seriously for saying that thing. So I was feeling kind of mishmashed about it, but just watching it was fun and not trying to figure it out and just turning off my brain. Sometimes you just got to stop thinking. Take all those thoughts, put them in a jar, watch a movie. Forget that other things exist, that there are bigger issues out there. Just stop thinking. You'll be much, much happier. It works for beautiful, dumb people like myself. So, JD, I really want to know what you find. I think the word you said was dangerous or troubling.
Very troubling.
Okay, troubling.
Well,
I'm ready.
What troubles me, Michelle, is kind of reflected in like the things you're talking about. There are definitely things that I picked up. I've seen it discussed in other reviews. I guess I frankly, and again, I don't know this person. I don't know what they actually think, what they actually believe. My experience of this movie is that, like, this is how the movie read to me. This movie read to me that embryonic stem cell research is the folly of mankind, and pursuing it to try and improve our lives is ultimately going to be our complete undoing. that the man behind that concept is the great villain, and that these two aliens have come to Earth to save us from our own hubris. And also, on top of that, that the highest possible purpose and reason for existing for a woman is to birth children. And like a lot of the reviews that I see talk about that as if it's like it's just sort of a side element. To me, that's the entire thrust of the movie. The movie is called Divinity, right? What is divinity? It basically implies godlike, right? Playing God. What is this movie about? It's about a guy who basically allowed people to live forever by engaging in embryonic stem cell research. And there's those moments where it's just so snide, like, oh, it was only a few embryos. What's the big... Like, it seems to conflate a lot of things the same way a lot of other issues do. It just, like the whole reason those brothers show up is to exact vengeance or stop this from happening. It's the primary driver of this story, and everybody is just overlooking it like it's tertiary. And I took it as much more aggressive than that. I was really just taken aback to the point of, like, I was like, whoa, what the, like, what is this fucking wild left turn this movie just took with that reveal? I don't know. I was just from that point forward very, very bothered by what my reading of the film seemed to be indicating. And I don't know, maybe I'm taking it way more seriously than I'm supposed to be, but it hit me real hard that this movie is like aggressively like birther.
So everything you mentioned about women existing purely to reproduce and this is man's undoing embryonic stem cell research, all of that totally picked up on the same thing. The difference is that I didn't take it as a serious thing because this movie was so absurd up to that point that I was like, if this is an actual message you're trying to send out into the world, what was the point of the penis guy? He was beefy and monstrous. And I thought lots of the parts up to that were quirky / funny. So I didn't take it as Eddie Alcazar saying, this is my message to the world, if that makes sense.
Then why?
For the sake of making a movie.
So he just happened to choose this particular thing as a villain, not for any reason other than, oh, what if my villain is a guy doing embryonic stem cell research? It's just a random choice? Come on, you don't really believe that, do you?
Well, it's not embryonic stem cell research. It is more developed fetuses, and isn't embryonic stem cell research much earlier?
Well, it plays into like if you go back and watch it again, as I certainly know that you're going to, and I probably should as well. It very much seems to indicate to me that that's where it started, was with stem cell research. And that was the slippery slope. Like, it started there. And then somebody was like, oh, well, if we just push it a little further, that would be fine. And if we just push it a little further, that would be fine. But it very much felt to me like it was saying this idea in general is... Like, it very much felt to me like it was making a moral and ethical statement about those situations and that type of science and that whole, again, I feel like the reason it's called Divinity is because it's all about passing judgment for quote-unquote playing God. I really got a bad taste from all of that.
Yeah, I think when I got to that point, I definitely went like, oh, he's definitely not for whatever this procedure is in real life. But I'm also like, well, currently how stem cells are gathered, it's not this far along in the pregnancy. This is like showing you a fetus like recoiling from a needle. And I'm like, oh yeah, he's definitely opposed to whatever this is, but I think most people would be. I didn't take it as him thinking this is what's going to happen, but he was like, how do I take something that is a real world thing and then make it as my villain? Like, I'm trying to think of how to say it better. But like, he took something that we already know about and he did make it more extreme, but I didn't think of it as him saying this is going to happen. He needed some way to loop it back, I guess.
No, I don't mean to suggest that this is some sort of like prediction about what's going to happen. What I'm saying is this movie very much to me feels like somebody making a philosophical statement about embryonic stem cell research. You know, it very much feels to me like this movie is about that. And I guess I just, like, again, I may be reading it entirely incorrectly. If it is, I mean, that's just what I randomly landed on, or just the choice I made is just like, oh, what if it's this guy? Like, I don't know. It just came across so... I think part of what added to my dislike of those elements is I feel like when you put it together with the whole thing of like women, first of all, remaining pure, give me a fucking break. Remaining pure, wearing white, these are the only ones who can give birth anymore. And of course, they're all just stunningly beautiful, tall, model type women. And they give birth, and it's this plant creature that's so you know, I think indicating, you know, perhaps evolution beyond humanity, whether it be through actual like merging with other alien life or what it may be. But like, just when you combine all of that with this idea of women as their grand purpose being birthing machine, that all just adds together to me to create this image of just like gross birther garbage. And I don't know. I will tell you this. I don't know how much you watched the credits of this movie. I decided to watch them, and look, this is just a thing I noticed. I don't want anybody to get the impression that what I'm saying is like, oh, this is the smoking gun, it's birther nonsense. It's just another little thing that I noticed that puts me on suspicion of this guy. There's a whole there's a whole column at the very end of the credit. I watched them because there were these images that were being flashed in between the credits, and I was curious if they were trying to, you know, represent something, so I watched all the way through it. There's one of the last things in the credits is a list of special thanks. And wedged in among all of these names and the special thanks that you've never heard of before, Elon Musk. I'm just saying. I'm not saying it means anything. I'm saying, look, I'm not going to lie, man. That makes you fucking sketchy in my book, and it makes me suspicious of what you're doing. But
I just want to know, how was Elon Musk involved?
Well,
I got questions. What did he do to earn it?
But yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying is, like, each one of these things on its own, I could see how maybe but when you put all of it together, to me, it strikes me as far more than just coincidence or something that's not trying to send a message. And I could be wrong. I wanted to make sure I said that from the beginning, and I think I've said it a million times, and my neurosis over it has gotten the best of me. But that's the reading I took from this, and that's why I was and I was so bummed because I was loving it up until that point. I thought visually it was so cool and unique. I was wondering, like, for a while I was like, what is this? Is this trying to be like? And then for a while I was just like, oh no, this is just like a cool comic book style adventure movie with a really cool visual style. And I'm really enjoying it. And there's like the weird, like tentacle faced monster version of the alien in the body and all that really cool shit. And then it hit that.
Commercials. Really
Yeah,
like the commercials.
it's so good. There is one thing I did want to point out. I mentioned I almost said it in the spoiler free section, and then I was like, oh no, that's actually a spoiler. I shouldn't say it. You said this movie is black and white, and it is almost all black and white except the last 1 second or so, last few frames are in color. And when does that happen? When does it go from black and white to color? When the woman has fulfilled her purpose and given birth. Oh, it just, I don't know. It felt so gross to me.
And I really want to know, because it sounds like you and I picked up on the exact same things, but you took it as a serious reflection of his views, and I took it as, yeah, no, that is fucking gross. That women's only purpose is to reproduce. But I don't think that's like necessarily what he thinks. So I'm so curious now, because if he's like, yeah, embryonic stem cell research is bad, I'm gonna be like, what? They're like days old. Yeah.
Right. But again, Michelle, what I would say to that is like that's not the kind of villain you write if you don't think that type of person is a villain. You know what I mean? It's such a specific now current thing that like I can't see somebody just like, oh, I'm just going to play devil's advocate here and make my villain a guy doing research using, babies and embryos and such. Like that's the common argument of like anti abortion pro-life people is like, oh, the slippery, like, oh, you're just gonna start doing tests on babies and shit. Like that's I can't foresee any circumstance whatsoever where it makes sense that this is the story and he doesn't agree with it.
Interesting. Because I think a lot of people wouldn't agree with the guy who created Divinity. I don't think most people would agree with him, so that's why to me it doesn't seem like such a leap. Like we might be at a point right now of embryonic stem cells, and so it's not our reality of being like this much further along in the pregnancy and then harvesting them. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he is opposed to that. And that a lot of people would be opposed to that, and that's why he went that direction.
No, sure. I understand that people would absolutely be opposed to things going further than where they are, but again, why do you propose that as the structure for a story? Like, I don't know how to say this. Like, I guess the idea that somebody would conceive a villain that they don't believe in reality is actually wrong in any way at all just seems completely... I just can't imagine a situation where that happens. I can't.
Yeah. And to me, the storyline, a big part of the problem is the infertility aspect, and that the human race is going to die out. So making it so that how they wound up in this situation is by taking embryonic research further is kind of like a logical step.
Right, but I guess my point is, like, we're saying, okay, so why is your villain somebody taking this thing too far? Like, I'm sorry, I'm really not sure how to say this, but if your villain is a demonstration of what could maybe happen if this thing was taken too far this way. To me, the reason you're telling that story is a critique of the thing. You're making a slippery slope argument that the reason, like the whole reason they're telling this story about somebody who's taken it too far is as a cautionary tale about the thing in the first place. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I guess I just don't think everybody necessarily thinks it through to that extent all the time. And to me, it seems like it's the cause of the infertility being that they messed with the reproductive system and shouldn't have. Like, and then that guy had to become the villain because he's going to be the downfall of human race. Like, that all just didn't seem that crazy to me, to the point where it felt like a real message. However, I will say, I wouldn't be surprised with you talking about it this way, that it could also be that perspective of he wanted to make a point, and go that direction to say, like, I'm going to make a movie that people are going to love, and it's also going to be against embryonic stem cell research. It's going to be against women not reproducing. It's going to be against these things, but it's also going to be really fucking cool. So people are gonna listen to my message, and that's also possible. I'm not saying that it's not, and that I don't understand your perspective at all. I'm just trying to also say, like, well, from my area, I just watch as like cool horror movie. I can see how they well, sci-fi, whatever it is, horror adjacent. I can also see how they, like, if they didn't think it out and cared about a message, how this could just be like it's about infertility and here's how we solve it. And women obviously are the ones who are gonna be the people who are gonna give birth in this movie. So I just didn't see it as like a bigger message. But I am very curious now, because if he's saying embryonic stem cell research is bad, I have so many pro-life friends who are even for embryonic stem cell research, because
and again, a lot of this comes from the fact I probably do need to see it again myself. Here's another thing that one of the reasons I do want to see it myself, because it's an important detail that I don't know for sure, but I don't remember them ever saying that divinity harms male fertility at all. I remember them. I remember very specifically that it harms female fertility, but I don't remember. In fact, isn't the indication there that he's calling all of these women, these call girls, because they are still pure, so that he can knock them up to get more supply or whatever for producing more divinity?
Yeah.
And see, this is what I'm saying, is all of these elements combined together in one place. Where there's smoke, there's fire, Michelle. I guess that's just how I went to it. Obviously, I clearly am in the minority here. Like I said, I've read a shit pile. I immediately was like, I got to read reviews of this, because I haven't heard anybody talking about this insanely like birther film. And I watched it. I don't think that's actually what a birther is. It's a thing that I just started. That's like where you were born, that sort of stuff. I should probably learn my terminology.
I think birther movement is a thing, though, where they believe that people should not choose not to have offspring. Birther movement is a thing.
Yeah. So anyway, I just very much that. Yeah, I was right. Birthers are the people who are like, oh, Obama wasn't actually born here. But yeah, there are definitely people who believe in women just being, those, like you said, have more babies. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I've heard people use it recently because of Vance. So that's why I thought that maybe it's used for both. Because we're like, we're past the Obama stuff. So 10 years, time to come up with a new reason to use that term again.
Sure.
Now this guy who fucks couches, he's going to be the one who gets to be compared to it.
Yeah. So anyway, I could probably go over and over and say the same thing a bunch of different ways, but yeah, that's the way I interpreted this, and I don't know. I guess the main thing to me that obviously makes me think, maybe I'm blowing this way out of proportion is the fact that nobody else seems to have taken it that way. But I found it very, very troubling. So I guess I need to watch it again. You need to watch it again. Maybe I should Michelle, maybe what we need to do is we just need to maybe stop recording these until we've watched these movies twice.
Oh, God. You know how many things I have to watch.
I know.
There's never going to be enough time.
We'd never get
I've got
anything done.
Crazy. Yeah, I have so many things on the Michelle and review already for August, and we're only 2 days in.
Oh, God.
Here's what I will say. That when I was watching the big reveal, I definitely went, oh, this guy doesn't like abortion. Like, that much, I definitely went like, oh, okay. But that's not, I don't want to say like crazy extremist view. For the record, I'm pro-choice. I don't give a fuck. Do what you want. 9 months old, club that baby. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally, no. I have so many friends with newborns. Your newborn is great. They smell good. I get it. I know why people like babies. And oh my God, my friends giving birth, I cannot imagine. You are goddesses. I could not do it. I can't handle nausea. So like any possibility of morning sickness, it's not my choice. Also, I have very fucked up genetics I don't want to pass on. That's my number one reason. But anyway, like to me, I went, oh yeah, this guy, yeah, he doesn't like abortion. Like I felt like that insight was pretty clear because anybody doing something having to do with like any sort of like fetus, kind of want to say like exploitation, but like, like that seems like somebody who is probably anti-abortion. So that much I definitely agree with you that I went, yeah, this might be an insight into who this guy is. I just didn't take it as further to be like he thinks that women have to give birth.
See, that's the interesting part to me, Michelle, because the moment I even get a whiff of anti-abortion, my brain immediately starts like, probably this, probably this, probably this, probably this. And, that's probably not the greatest thing, but look, again, you know what I say, where there's smoke, there's fire. And to me, that was just the cascade, right? Like, but I don't know. Yeah. I would love to hear, obviously, we always want to hear from our listeners, but I would especially love to hear from folks who have seen this film on how they took it. Again, please understand, I can't say enough times, I don't know with certainty that's what it was, but that is the impression I got from watching this movie. So,
also,
yes,
if you're gonna comment, any of our listeners, please just
don't be an asshole.
Well, no, also that, but like, just don't turn our comment section into an abortion debate, please. This is my escape from the world,
right?
And I would just, I have so much stuff with real issues in real life, and sometimes that is something that bleeds into the podcast because in cases like this, like movies can be a reflection of current events, obviously. Mm-hmm. Some of the most popular movies are exactly that. But I am just begging you, like,
please,
you're not going to sway our minds. You're not going to sway anybody else's minds. I am open to whatever your interpretation of this is. I am open to whatever your position on things are. I don't know. I think, like, I don't go to, like, how do I say this? And
Michelle is so mad at me right now for asking you all to share your thoughts on this. Let me be clear.
Like, oh God.
Let me be clear. I am asking specifically for whether or not you thought the film was as aggressively pro-reproduction as I did. I don't care what your beliefs are. I just want to know if you took this the way I did or if you took this the way Michelle did. Frankly, if you say more than one of those things, either way, I will probably just delete your comments and maybe block you. A vague disclaimer is nobody's friend.
JD can block on his personal account and leave the We Watch Shutter account to me because he likes to get upset very easily sometimes.
Michelle has the keys for a reason, guys.
Yeah, because earlier you're like, that episode would have been deleted if I saw that first.
Yeah,
This is why we breathe, we take a breath, we take a Xanax, we reassess that not everybody... I think you just have a viewpoint that everyone in the world is a dick unless otherwise proven, and I'm such a positive person.
Not that everyone is a dick, Michelle, that everyone hates me.
Fair. Okay, well, we both agree on that everybody hates us.
Oh, wow. Oh, I thought you said we both agree on everybody hates me. See?
No, I think everybody hates me. I agree. I think everybody hates us. I think they hate the podcast. I think especially after this episode, we are a small... I can't even say modest. We are a tiny, insignificant duo of people. Our numbers, oh man, if this is the one that skyrockets, I'm gonna live on anti-anxiety medicine for the next couple of weeks, just for like that day when we hit like 1,000 downloads in a day, and I go, oh no, who found it, and why are they sharing it, and what are they mad about? They got to the abortion discussion. No,
as evidence of how JD should probably not be allowed to react in the moment when his dander is up. I did, after this movie had finished right away, under my own name from my own account, because that's how Shudder works. I did post.
Oh no!
I did post a one-line review of the film that said, I believe it was just something because I
found it.
Did you?
Oh, cool. Thinly veiled, a woman's prime purpose is to reproduce propaganda. Groovy. And what's hilarious is while we were working out our technical issues and I had like already figured out like, oh, I think JD took the thing that I took as like absurdist. I think he took it seriously. And I went to look at the Shudder reviews and I saw that one and did not read the screen name and just went, oh, so at least one person agrees with him, and then it's fucking you.
Yeah,
I went, oh, well, maybe I need to reconsider, because I totally thought like, well, at least one guy on Shudder agrees with you, and JD Proworks.
Yeah, it's just look, this is what I'm telling you, but I can just tell you what my gut did as I was watching the movie, and that's the experience that I had. And to be honest, if that wasn't the intention, that almost worries me more, because then my question becomes, but what about other people like me who watch it and they do think that's what it's trying to say and they agree with that? You know? And obviously I'm not one of these, everybody is responsible for what anybody takes from the, misinterpretation is a real thing. I'm just a person who is at the same time just real worried about collateral damage. And so I think that's ultimately why this worries me so much, is if that wasn't the intent, what might come of it anyway? And again, not in the sense of you shouldn't be allowed to do this or you shouldn't have done this. I just wish people would maybe think about that a little bit more than maybe they do.
I am the kind of person who would put out a reckless movie that causes more damage than good, and not think twice until I heard it on a podcast. I am that person, and I think that's why I give so much maybe they thought that way. But I watch extremist horror, and I would make extremist horror and be like, what do you mean? I don't think that women are only reproductive machines. I just made a movie about it. What do you mean there's a group following it and think that I'm the Messiah?
I would
reckless and dumb.
I would like to also welcome anybody who's here for the first time to the therapy portion of the show, because for those of you who have been paying attention, yes, exactly what happened here is I said I wish they would have just taken a little bit more time to think about maybe what might happen because of what they were doing here that they maybe didn't necessarily intend but happened anyway. Right after talking about how, oh yeah, I just fucking blew up and overreacted, I was like, your movie is anti-woman propaganda, without stopping to think about what I was. Yes, I get the irony of it. That's part of probably why I interpret things like this as firmly rooted in my own self-loathing and deprecation. Welcome to the therapy portion.
Can I say something very, I don't know if earnest is the correct word.
Yes.
Also, if it's your first time tuning in, I'm really fucking bad at debating. So welcome. I try my hardest, but I have these thoughts that make sense until I start saying them, and then they don't make sense anymore. Why does it sound different when I say it, JD?
I
watched that movie.
Why doesn't it sound like that when I say it? That's one of my favorite line deliveries ever.
So, honestly, though, what's really cool is I have known you, Jesus, like 10 years now, 8 years, somewhere around that. And I have seen how both of us have grown as people. And I think it's really cool being able to see your thought process of like working through like how you feel about something to the end. Because in this case, it was a very short-term thing. I knew all you had messaged me is, I got something to say about this movie. And I went, he either loved it or hated it. So that's all I knew before we hopped on. And then going through the discussion, you know. But like then I see things like Late Night with the Devil, which you hated. And then I watched you go through the stages of like, oh, no, actually, I was wrong. This is like a 5-star movie. And it's really cool doing this podcast, getting to see like that like growth. Not like as a human, but like the like change, you know, it's really cool to see. Like, oh, well, maybe I am just a little too upset.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's also why it's important that we very much do stress that fact that we're talking about these movies like, in my case, usually literally minutes after I've finished watching it, and these are raw reactions, just ready to go in that moment. And so, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll see it again, and things will lighten up for me. I'm also very concerned that if I watch it again, it's just going to cement these things more in my mind, even further. But you know, that's I will say that it's not often that a movie makes us talk about real, genuinely serious stuff on this level. And I do appreciate that it gave us the opportunity to do that. So, yeah.
One other really cool thing that happens because of our podcast is because we have these discussions and I never even thought of it from that angle. I now think of it from that angle sometimes. When I'm watching things, I go like, what is the deeper thing? Is the person who made this thing an asshole? Is this an indication that, oh no, is this an actual message here? I try to think more in depth, except for Love Lies Bleeding, which I took literally because it's great that way. Watch that movie thinking it's 100% fact. It's great. Take it literally. Yeah, so no, you're also helping me like learn things, and also my anxiety is so much better debating you than it used to be, like when we did Watcher for the first time and I was dripping sweat because I was not prepared to have a different opinion than you. I was shaking. I was not doing okay in that one.
I also have definitely tempered myself to a degree, which I'm sure some people are like, this is JD tempered, and Michelle's just like, oh, you don't even know. You don't even know. Like,
yeah.
You think you heard some shit in the early days of this podcast. You should see some of the things that Michelle has been, and frankly, a lot of people in my life have been privy to in the past. Anyway,
that's partially why he deletes every message. I think just so there's no trail.
Well, I mean, definitely leave no evidence.
Also, it makes your internet run faster. Yep.
Right. In 1996, when it started out as just clearing out all of my storage caches and the like the virtual RAM and shit, because I was literally running a bullshit computer that needed to be constantly cleared out to operate even remotely, it made sense. But now it's a whole different level of neurotic.
Yeah. And it's kind of fitting that you delete everything, and I have a short-term memory loss disability, so I don't remember what you put out there, and it's really nice.
I would like to point out, however, that I currently have over a year of undeleted posts on my wall. Not everything.
Okay,
not everything. You know, some of it has been removed.
Mass update.
Keeping lots of pictures, that sort of stuff. You know.
Yep.
Trying to be
anyway.
Anyway, guys, go watch Divinity. Let us know if you agree with my take or Michelle's take. Don't let us know anything else. I don't give a shit.
I don't. You're not gonna sway either of us. We're old. No. We're old people. We got our thoughts. I spent a lot of time researching.
Hey, Michelle.
Yeah.
So we both just saw this movie today, but next week, one way or the other, we're trying to get a guest for next week's episode because I think it's a very important guest to get. And
I was just informed of the guest, so I know about the guest now.
Yeah, I told you in the messenger before
I meant today.
Oh,
like an hour ago.
Michelle, I just talked to them today because, as I was about to say, we both just also this day for the first time saw another film. How could I have planned this days ago, Michelle, when I hadn't seen the movie yet? Anyway,
because all of this is a simulation, and it was pre-programmed that way.
That's fair. So anyway, Michelle and I both saw for the first time the new Jane Schoenbrunn film. I saw The TV Glow. I have already been very openly vocal about my thoughts on it. I have not asked Michelle in detail her thoughts on it, but we're going to be talking about that film next week, one way or the other. That will be our new episode, and I hope you...
I will not be saying how I feel about it until then.
I hate you. I will just tell it.
This is what we do.
Yeah, I know.
We're not supposed to tell each other. You're just very bad at that rule.
Well, sometimes, Michelle, things hit you in such a way that I can't hold it in. But I'm for the benefit of the listeners, just go watch that movie and come back next week. Also, next week we have a special bonus episode. Michelle, do you want to tell everybody what it is?
Cold Skin and the Lighthouse.
Yes, in honor of International Lighthouse Day. Because I'm so clever.
I did not remember what the holiday that we chose for that was. Okay.
Yeah, is
fascinating.
Because August has no holidays, right? So I had to pick something. And I was just looking through a list, and I immediately was like, oh, Lighthouse Day, we can do The Lighthouse. And then it hit me, we can also do a movie that came out 2 years before The Lighthouse called Cold Skin. I think we're going to have some interesting things to talk about. I know you've seen The Lighthouse, Michelle. Have you seen Cold Skin?
I have not.
Ooh, yeah, this is going to be interesting. Anyway, that's coming up next week on the 7th and on the 10th. Check out WeWatchShutter.com for everything that's coming up. Do you have anything else we need to talk about, Michelle? Have I just started transitioning into the end like a jerk without even checking with you first?
Here's what I have to say. I cannot stress enough how much I do not care what your thoughts on abortion are. Please do not message us. I'm begging you, unless it's in relation to the movie.
I'm so sorry,
care.
Michelle. I'm so sorry. And look,
I know what's going to happen.
I will even say I do care, but I don't want to hear it. Keep it to your fucking self.
Message JD on his personal account with how he is an awful person, but do
please.
Not message me. I'm also a fragile person. You won't change my mind. You will make me cry, though. So, what's the point of putting that energy out into there? Just have a better day. Don't think of me and my insignificant ideas on things. I'm not writing legislature. Go talk to somebody else. I'm just here having anxiety, okay?
You're not writing legislature? I think you mean legislation.
Yeah, probably. Thanks, Captain Pedantic. I'm clearly got my mind on other things right now.
Captain Pedantic strikes again. Say goodnight, Michelle.
Everybody's least favorite superhero. Good night, Michelle.
For more horror content, visit WeWatchShutter.com, where you'll find our world-famous patent-pending Ghoul blog and Squelch files, as well as a schedule of upcoming episodes. Find us on social media at WeWatchShutter on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I guess Twitter if you're still doing that for whatever reason. You can email us. mail@WeWatchShutter.com is the address. mail@WeWatchShutter.com. You can even call and leave us a voicemail, 701-566-9510. No, really. 701-566-9510. Give it a shot. See what happens. We Watch Shutter is a production of Rat Factory Media.